Hey guys, this is Matt, and welcome back to Lesson 10, where we're going to be learning about arrays. So let's jump right into it. In order to make an array, the first thing you have to do is declare the data type. And right now we're going to make an array of integers. And then you use brackets to declare that this is going to be an array of ints. And then you do a variable name, just like we do for every other type of variable. And we're going to call this my first array. But here we only said that we're going to have an integer array variable. Now we have to actually declare it and create the array. So we use our data type, my first array, and we're going to set it equal to the keyword new. So we're going to create a new array. Then we use the same data type, int, and then brackets. And inside of the brackets, we're going to put the number of elements that are going to be allowed to be in the array. Here we're going to make an array that can hold 5 integers. So now that we have an empty array, let's start putting things into it. To do that, we use the variable name, my first array, and then we index into it using the brackets again. And here we're going to put the index that we want to access. And arrays start at an index value of 0. So the first integer in this array is going to be at index 0. So that's how we're going to access it. And we're going to set the integer at that index equal to 10. And we're going to do that again, but at index 1. Set that equal to 20. Set index 2 equal to 30. And we'll set index 3 equal to 40. And our last one, index 4, is going to be set to the integer 50. So the first thing to notice is that the array can hold 5 integers, but the biggest index is index 4, which is 1 minus the maximum length of our array. And that's because the index of the first element of our array is 0, instead of starting at 1 like a lot of things that we tend to deal with too. Now we have an array, and it has some numbers in it. So let's display it now. We're going to do that using a for loop. So let's create an empty for. And in here, I'm just going to say integer I starting at 0. And while I is less than my first array, we're going to do a dot. And one of the properties of an array is a length. So we can get the length of our array by using my first array dot length. And then we're going to say I plus plus. We're going to increment our index, our indexing variable I. And inside of here, all we have to do is a console write line. We're going to access each element inside of the array my first array. And we'll do that by putting the brackets here. And our index is going to be the variable I, because I goes from 0 to 4, because that's what this loop is doing. And we're just going to concatenate onto that a space. So let's run that. And we're going to see the array print out the numbers 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, the numbers that are inside of our array. So let's take a quick look back at how we made our array. And this is kind of a lot. It's a lot of lines to just create an array that has 5 integers inside of it. So let's comment this out. And let's do all of this, but let's use only one line. So we're going to have our data type, which is, again, an integer array. We're going to name it. We'll use the same name, my first array. And we're going to set it equal to new int with brackets. And we'll put the length in here of 5. And now we use curly braces. And inside of the curly braces, we can actually put the integer values that we want to populate our array with. The only catch is that the number of values inside of these curly braces has to match the length that we told the array. And here we told it that it can hold 5 elements, so we're going to have to supply 5 elements inside of these curly braces. So let's do that well, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. And we'll put a semicolon there. So this one line does the same thing that the 7 lines above does. So that's how to easily create an array. Let's comment all of that out. And what we're going to do now is we're going to ask the user how long the array should be. And we're going to create an array that can hold that many elements. And then we'll loop through that empty array and we'll ask the user to populate the array with values. And at the end, we're just going to copy those elements back out to the user in another for loop. So the first thing we need to do is prompt the user, and we're going to say, enter the length of the array. And we're going to do that with a write. And down below it, we're going to take the user input. So that's going to go into an integer data type. We're going to call it array length. And we're going to set it equal to convert.toInt32. And then we get the user's input with console.readline. So now we have the length of the array that we need to make. Now let's stub out the empty array that can hold that many elements. This is going to be an array of strings. So we use the string data type, and we declare that it's going to be an array by using these brackets. Same with the int. We'll give it a name, user array, and we're going to set it equal to new string. And here we tell it how big it's going to be. But instead of just putting 5 or 6 in here, we're going to use our variable array length. So now we're creating an array that is however large the user said it should be. And now we just loop through it. I'm going to use integer I starting at 0. And then while I is less than user array.length, we're going to say I++. And in here, we're going to prompt the user again with a console write. I'm going to use string interpolation to say enter value, our looping variable, I, which we're going to use as the indexing variable. And then underneath it, we populate our array. So we'll say user array, we index into it using our variable I, equals the data from the user. So console.readline. And we only need a read line because we're getting strings from the user. Let's do some white space, and then we're going to tell the user they entered the values, and here underneath it, we're going to make another for loop and just loop through it one more time and display everything back to the user. Int I equals 0, while I is less than user array.length. We're going to increment I by 1, and here we just print it out. So we say our array, user array, and we're going to index into it, again, using our looping variable I. And then we'll just concatenate a space. And we're going to change this to a write. Enter the length of the array. We're going to make it so that it can hold 6 strings. Enter value 0. We'll just say the word 0. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then underneath it, we see entered values, and then it printed back out 0 through 5, but in string form. So that's it for the lesson. Now let's go on to the task. Make a program that asks the user to enter 5 double values. Put the values into a double array. After all the values have been entered, calculate the average of all the numbers and display it back to the user. Then ask if the user wants to run the program again. If they enter Y, run the program again. Some example output, enter 5 doubles, and then they enter the values 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, and 6, and the average of those is 5, and then it asks the user to run again. So take some time to do that, and when you come back, I'll share my solution. And here's my solution. You can pause the video and take a look at the code. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment down below or get in touch with me in the Discord channel. Links are in the description. Like and subscribe if you thought this video was helpful, and I'll see you on Tuesday.